There's something that I've never said publicly about my career that I think it's time for me to say it out loud as I do this work with women, high achieving, successful women. I really feel like this is the time for me to share this. When I first stepped into my field, I walked into spaces, into rooms where many people there did not necessarily look like me. Wink, wink. And the few who did weren't the ones being centered or listened to. And then there were those who, I don't know, that category. And even though I had the degrees, I had the experience, I had my receipts, something in me just suppressed myself. There was like almost like an innate need for me to not say anything, to be quiet. And it wasn't because I didn't have a point of view. I have a very strong one. Certainly wasn't because I wasn't on show, even though I didn't know everything about everything. Who does? But I certainly brought a lot that I could contribute. But because I felt the unspoken rules of the room, of the spaces, those tacit agreements that are there, that are not spoken, but are there, strongly dominating what's happening, I didn't say anything. I didn't share. I would just literally sit there and think, I know this is wrong. I feel this is unfair. This is not right. This is not equitable. I know I'm more qualified than a lot of the conversations going on, the people speaking. And I know it doesn't make sense, but I still chose silence because I did not want to be labeled as the person who made things difficult and who was, you know, all those words that typically are used when people like me show up in spaces that are not necessarily created for us. So, the part I wasn't ready to admit for a long, long time was that I wasn't silencing myself because I lacked confidence. I was doing that because the standard I was being measured against was never created or built for me. And it's almost formidable, and it takes a lot of inner personal development and work and growth to be able to push through this. At the time, I didn't have it. Because when you grow up watching the voices of people who look different from you, when you grow up watching those voices get validation, get praise, get acknowledgement, get more money, get faster promotions, get things quicker, or get things that you will never get, you learn without anyone saying it, or at least saying it directly to you, that your voice, your presence has to be smaller to be professional, to fit in, to be a team player, to be a team member, stand out or be an outlier, to rock the boat, to maintain the status quo. And the crazy wild part is, it's not true. I knew it wasn't true. I felt its unfairness. I felt its falsity or whatever. Because your inside is sharp. You know your work is solid. You know the contributions you bring. You know how much value you hold as a high achieving woman. And your God will never lead you astray. You're right. Your God is right. But there's this internal pressure to shrink yourself, to make yourself more palatable, to fit in, so that you can survive. And for many of us, it really is just the instinct to survive at any cost, even if it means suppressing who you are, suppressing your greatness, your vibrance, your shine, because you want to fit into a system that was never ever created to accommodate you, to support you. I even venture to say the system was created or designed to keep you down, to suppress your brilliance and not recognize it, unless you shrink or mold yourself or shape shift. So my turning point came not in a very loud or dramatic way, but it was through some of the things that I was doing internally. And I remember when one day someone said something that made absolutely no sense, zero sense, something that I knew wasn't aligned with the work that we were doing or I was doing, or even aligned with reality. And I felt that instinctive, familiar desire, or I wouldn't even say desire, behavior of suppressing and not saying anything, to stay quiet, to not rock anything, to keep it smooth, all those things that we tell ourselves when we're faced with moments like this, because I know I'm not alone in this. But this time, something pushed back within me. It was an internal tussle. Just move on, because at the end of the day, you still get the things. You know what I mean? But today was like, nope, you're going to speak, you're going to say. And I remember sitting there and thinking to myself, why am I censoring myself in this room when I'm more prepared than many? Why am I bending to fit into a standard that was never made with me in mind and will never change to accommodate me or acquiesce me or make me feel welcome and warm and fuzzy? And the most important thing, I think, was, why am I acting like I don't see what I see? Because it's one thing to not say anything, but it's another to just keep going and allowing this to keep happening, or maybe not even allowing, and just allowing yourself to to be exposed to this, you know, consistently. And so that question, even though it didn't provide the answer in its immediately, but what it did was get me to go deeper within myself and really, really, do the things that I needed to do. The question was literally the beginning of everything changing for me. And I can't say that I found my voice, because my voice was always there. That also too, when I hear people say people's voices, people don't have voices, I always beg to differ, because in my opinion, our voices are there. The issue is the voices are silenced, or the volume of the voices are turned down or dimmed. But the voices are never lost. Everyone has a voice. Unfortunately, some of those voices are not allowed to be heard, or dimmed, So I won't say that I found my voice moment. It was just a moment or a time in that space where my voice became loud and became, you could hear it. So that was the way that I finally stopped abandoning myself and abandoned what I know was true in that context. So, my question to you is, if you have ever been in a room, in a space, in an area, in those types of environments where you knew you were qualified, you were capable, you were prepared, and you still felt yourself adjusting to maintain the status quo, adjusting so that you wouldn't stand out, adjusting to fit in, to survive, I want you to know that you're not weak, you're not pussy, none of that. It's the conditioning that many of us have internalized. And now is the time to unhook from all of that. And it's the moment for you to start to ask yourself, why do I keep shrinking, much as I did at that time? Why do I keep shrinking in spaces that I've outgrown? And really allow that question to percolate and move you to the next step. Know that once you start to ask that question, that moment that question becomes a real question for you, you're already shifting. That shift has begun. And your real voice is not lost. It just hasn't been heard, but it's now time to speak up. It's now time to turn the volume up. It's just been waiting for you to stop negotiating in those spaces, because they were never built for your fullness, for you to thrive. And so, if this hit or resonated or touched something within you, I want to invite you to join me and other ladies on December 27th, 2025, at 6 p.m. Eastern for my newly created masterclass. It's called the Soft Life Shift. And during that masterclass, I will be unpacking why choosing yourself always feels less risky in spaces that reward your silence, and the micro shifts, or why not choosing yourself, or choosing yourself feels risky, excuse me, in spaces that reward your silence, and the micro shifts that help you to start living a life that actually reflects who you are. And the link to join is in the registration. The link to register or to join is in the description somewhere. I would love to see you there. It's my invitation to you, and I'll see you in the next live.